Man, okay. I think if I'm biased, but I do think Webflow is a strong tool. That's like your Porsche 911. It makes aesthetically pleasing things. The engineering is great. You can do a bunch with it. You can plug in a bunch of different apps. It's heavily supported, but it's not like you got to do a ton of legwork. And then if I were to look at something like Framer, I probably would call that the Cayman. It's a smaller company right now. It's smooth though. It creates aesthetically pleasing things. It gets the job done, and it's people are arguably saying, "I'd rather have a Cayman than a 911." I can see some Porsche enthusiasts debating just like Webflow and Framer people, like, debate all the time. And then the BMW F10 M Sport, that's probably just your Shopify because it's a well-rounded machine. It's been around for a while. It's been some decade.
Mhm.
It's a decade and some change.
This is The Ramblings. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I am your host, Angelo Roberts Jr. I have today with us Dexter Washington, CEO and founder of Crafted Designs. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I appreciate this. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. We are in for a great conversation. Dexter is a lead designer, UI UX specialist, which is actually going to be very good for 2024 because you guys know that we're trying to design our own apps. So we're going to have some very personal and deep dive questions to get into. So as we like to start, Dexter, introduce yourself. Give us a little bit about your spiel, who you are, what you do, the whole nine.
Yeah, for sure. So, as Angelo mentioned, my name is Dexter Washington Jr., founder of Crafted Studios. I've been doing that for quite some time. Since 2020, I was working on it, but 2021 is when I established everything. Um, so, previous to that, and what even kind of got me in that realm just really quickly is I was working at agencies, advertising agencies, kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So I was working on design, advertising, collateral, etc. So, I quit that, went to start my own studio. Like I said, I've been doing that since 2020. And then this year, I'm actually a lead designer at a company as well called Juniper Networks, which was recently acquired by Hewlett Packard yesterday or the day before, which is pretty cool. A lot of stuff in the works in that arena too. But yeah, this is just what I do, everything design. In terms of like my own studio, I've worked with a lot of cool companies, man, such as Yahoo, Allegiant, Delta, working on some stuff for JetBlue, US Virgin Islands. So yeah, we have a lot of cool clients under our belt, and
Wow. Okay. So you've worked with some pretty heavy hitters.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Now, I think that's going to be where we officially land for the very first topic of conversation. For a lot of entrepreneurs out there, partnerships, especially since that's something that you have some expertise in. How do you go about getting your partnerships, especially as a small company? You probably have very limited to offer to a company that's the size of JetBlue. So, how do you get into a company or a partnership like JetBlue?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's just leverage. I think first and foremost for me, it was leverage. We use a tool called Webflow. That's not a new tool by any means, but a lot of companies
Hmm.
notice over the recent years have been shifting over to using Webflow. It's visual development, so it's a lot easier to use versus them using like Adobe experience, like platforms and all that other stuff. But it's just easier. It's more nimble. You can edit. You can change stuff on the fly. You can launch stuff really quickly compared to slow development times, offshore development teams. Just kind of like being a large global conglomerate, you're able to scale down to just one or two people managing the site. So they look to us as specialists in that arena. So number one, that's where we get our leverage from. Number
Hmm.
two, since we already have worked with clients like previously within the same like, weight class as them, you know what I'm saying? Then we have that also under our belt that we can say, hey, we work for or work with these companies like yours. Here's some job board work we've done with Allegiant. Here's some job board work we've done with Delta. Here's some site work we've done with et cetera, et cetera. And we're able to put those case studies together and then ultimately pitch, right? So
Hmm.
all the I'm talking about is like putting that all together inside of our pitch deck. And then, yeah, we just would shoot that over, add some social proof, go back and forth, negotiate a little bit if we need to, and then ultimately
How are
end
you
up.
even getting into the doors of these kinds of conversations? Because
Yeah.
so you've broken down like your process for preparing for it. How do you actually get a meeting with any of these large companies, even if it's like, say, your first one?
Yeah, so, that's a good question. So for me, it's been, exposure. So exposure and referrals. So I am on the Webflow Experts, partner program. That
Mhm.
it has a lot to do with exposure. It also helps with brand identity. Also exposure in a way where, I work on our SEO for my studio. So, we're visible in Los Angeles. the people at Webflow, I mean, the people at JetBlue, they are in San Francisco currently. The people at least I'm working with, they're in San Francisco currently. They were doing some research on designers in LA, stuff like that, since they're going to be down here. So, we're amongst the top, like, 3 to 5 that you're going to find. And then it's just all about sifting through work. And I actually,
Okay,
funny,
wait. I don't want to overlook that. Like we always like
yeah,
to look at the relatable and the repeatable. So SEO ranking in regards to the either social proof of being at the top of Google, being in a big city like LA, having that SEO ranking was a prime factor in being able to land the even interview or conversation with these bigger companies.
right, exactly, along with the other stuff too, right? Like, that was
Hmm.
on the research part, that was the entry, that was the first step. Second step, I'm assuming that they've done their research on us, looking at us on the Webflow Experts Partner Program, looking at our work, looking at everything, right? And they like it, so they were like, "Hey, let's reach out to them, and as well as other agencies, and let's just kinda see who comes up with something, better in terms of, like, packaging everything up for us, pricing, and everything else like that." So, yeah, but the first barrier entry was definitely search. I track all this stuff too, so I'm able to see where the leads are coming from, and it
Hmm.
was for sure they found us through Google, and I actually had a quick conversation. They were like, "Yeah, like, we stumbled upon you, upon our research on Google, and then we also found you on the Webflow Experts Partner Program." And then, yeah, we were like, we were looking for someone who does that, so we reached out. So I was like, "Okay, cool, dope." So, we land there. Um so, I mean, that was, like, one thing too. But to speak to your partnerships part, like, I do have partnerships, though, that would help me get to those larger clients that, like, JetBlue is later on down the line. That was, like, later, like, last year, like, quarter 4.
Hmm.
The Allegiance, the Yahoos, etcetera, like, those were formed through partnerships through a software company, one of our partners or previous partners, that we were doing business with, building out career boards, job boards. We were partnered with a company called Lever. If you apply for jobs, you probably have seen, like, the Lever applications, or if you ever just work with any type of job board in general, you usually see them. So that's what we were partnered with. They would get the companies and they'd be like, "Hey," they're their customers for, on an enterprise level, and they were like, "Hey, well, we have a partner here that does websites, and if you need a job board built out, career pages, etcetera, then, we can hook you up with them and we can build this stuff out." So, forming partnerships on a small scale to get those large clients was, like, the big important piece in getting these large
Hmm.
clients later on. 'Cause so I leverage all those projects to get, a JetBlue, to get, like, a Virgin Islands, to get, you know what I mean? It's long-winded, it's over the course of 4 years, but you know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
I
But
had
that's
to.
that's how long it takes to be able to build up that foundation and actually that social proof, because in order to land that JetBlue, you have to have that SEO ranking, which obviously you have to beat out all the people that already are trying to SEO rank for design, especially within LA. And it's a lot. And at that time, you also are working, I'm assuming, full time at a company. How are you managing being able to scale running a six-figure kind of company, working with companies, partner with like JetBlue, Yahoo, and stuff like that, and still work full time? How are you dividing your time up?
That's a good question, man. It's all about processes, processes and keeping in order. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta run a tight ship. So, for me, it's always just been about, like, what I did in the very early stages is I would write everything down of what I'm doing. So, I'm a designer. I have processes on how I design. I have processes on how I communicate. I have, you know what I mean? So, I write everything down in terms of, like, this is how I do it. This is how I get my results. This is how I get the results. Um, and so, I would just jot everything down. Like, this is how I want to communicate. This is how we do it via email, via Slack. This is the tools I use. This is everything, right? Everything that I was doing, I jotted down. And then I turned that into processes that are repeatable. And I did that through, I honestly forgot. I think it's a Scribe. I use Scribe. So Scribe is a
Love
great tool.
Scribe, great tool.
Yeah, you heard of Scribe. It's a great tool, and that helped me put stuff together, so that way the team, if they ever get stuck on anything, they could just refer to that, and thankfully and luckily, I've ended up in a good situation where everyone that's a collaborator, a part of Crafted, I don't like to call them team members because, I don't own anybody, and we're not really a true team. We're a team of collaborators more so, so everyone has their own businesses and their own things, but we might collaborate together. With that being said, like, like, they're all experts in their own right. So, I don't have
Right.
to. you know what I mean? I have to coach too much. I just say, hey, this is what we do and this is how we do it. Then give them the things to go ahead and go do. So so that helps too, that repeatable process. But at the end of the day, it is up to me to manage everything and it is up to me to handle the sales and stuff like that. So how I divide my time is just really simple. I'll get up early to do business tasks. I'll start my day job and then I'll get off and like just kind of check everything and make sure everything is done. So yeah, that's how I've been doing it. It's a lot less task heavy than it sounds though. I'm chilling. So it's
Listen,
nothing
man,
crazy.
living in LA, running a small company, working, you seem to be doing pretty fine by my standards. If I was to say, okay, so you said it's like light work. Are you trying to get to a point where you can leave your day job and scale full time, go full time entrepreneurship, or are you more of a chill kind of person? You would like to just keep it where like you're comfortable where things are.
Yeah, so man, I was full time for 3 years up until the later half of last year.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, you know, for me, I made the decision to go find a job because I just wanted to test the market, and I also just wanted benefits. To be honest, I like benefits are a good thing. I'm looking towards owning a home. You know, certain paperwork just looks a lot better when you got like W-2s, and I didn't want to go and do the whole like S corp tax route thing. I didn't want to punch above my weight in terms of getting a different entity set up so I can do my W-2s just right now. This was just kind of something I really wanted to do anyway, just kind of see, you know, where I'm at career-wise, and because at the end of the day, if running an agency is a lot. It's a lot going on. So for me, man, it's just important to have an exit point. You know, like you just mentioned, do I want to scale it? Not really. I'm comfortable with what we're doing, you know, impactful work, um, larger projects, a few of them a year, stuff like that. That's what I really like to do. And if I ever wanted to just say, you know what, I don't want to do this no more, my exit point is just to continue to work on my career. I don't have like millionaire aspirations like I used to have. I'm more so just kind of happy just doing what I'm doing right now. So you know,
Yeah, I think that is we have not yet had an entrepreneur on our show talk about that, or at least be in that mind state of expressing that particular point where it's like, "Hey, I'm an entrepreneur, but this is not something that I've tied my identity to. This is not something that I lay down my sword and die for. This was a means to an end, and that end has basically served out its purpose." Talk about like what did you feel any pressure? You said you used to have millionaire aspirations. Did you what changed in order for you to no longer have those aspirations and feel more comfortable where you at?
that's deep, man. That's a lot of inner work for sure. That's just inner work. Um, Man, where does it even start? I think for me, what made me kind of feel first of all, what drove me to be a millionaire is something I didn't even really know why. I just feel like as an entrepreneur in this space I'm at right now, where there's a handful of millionaires that I can look to who are my peers are like, okay, like that's dope, like cool. And you know, that probably their aspirations influence mine. And at some point, I had to think deeply and you know really think about myself and what I wanted in my life, right? How I wanted my life to look, how I like what am I happy, what am I comfortable with, and ultimately I landed at well, you know what, you know, just a little bit more here, a little bit more there will get me to my happiness, will get me to my goals, will allow me to afford the things that I want to actually do, um, invest in certain places and such, and that's what I want to do. We're humans, changes in 3 years, I can say, "You know what? Let's go crazy. Let's just scale this thing. Let's see what we can really do." But, the question I'm always gonna ask myself is, like, "What do I really want? And is what I'm doing right now gonna get me to my ultimate goal?" If the answer is yes, and I'm happy, I have enough time to allocate here, there, with my fiancé, with what we wanna do, with what everything I got going on, without compromising myself and my health and my you know what I mean? Then I'm happy. So just looking at my life in totality just made me realize, man, like I'm cool right now. I'm chilling. I have no aspirations. I'm also comfortable and happy with myself. I've done a lot. The studio has done a lot. We've won like a good amount of like Webflow awards. You know, I've been featured in a lot of different press. I've worked with a lot of cool clients. I've done a lot, man. I have a lot I can put on a wall and decorate the hell out of it. So, you know, once I reach those goals, I'm like, okay, like I'm cool. You know what I mean? I'm happy with it. this thing went further than I thought it would. So anywhere from here is a bonus. So I'm not gonna overwork and stress myself when it's a bonus. You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it.
That's a very important thing. Like you mentioned that you realize that some of your peers' aspirations were starting to become your own. What did you realize were your true aspirations and how did you find them?
Yeah. Um, I'm a simple guy, so for me, like, I don't need much, I'm a simple man. I love taking care of others. I I love, um I love being there for people. I love being there for myself. I think with what I'm doing right now, if I were to say like, "Okay, let's push for 1,000,000," that would take away a lot of those things that are more important to me. So I wouldn't have as much time to, like, kick it with my girl. I wouldn't have as much time to hang out with friends. I wouldn't have as much time to I've done all that in the early stages of, like, this is a grind, let me buckle down and just everything else. Let me just zone in on, this one thing. I've done that in my younger years, and, like, I just wanna enjoy life now, you
You
know,
say
um,
younger, how old are you now?
I'm 30, but I've been doing this, like, I've been on
Man, you been seeming like you're like,
here's
oh, I'm like 45.
here's the thing,
Those are
man.
my these are your part of your younger years.
Here's the thing, man.
In
I've
10
been
years, you're gonna be like 30 was part of my young years.
facts. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've been on this grind, this creative grind for very like for like it's been a decade and some change, so and I've been through a lot of you know what I'm saying? It's like, just different companies. I had a podcast as well. I spoke with some pretty cool people in that space. I've done a lot. I've been a photographer. I've done so much like to get to a point where like at a young adult where you're making enough to just like feel like okay, like everything is great right now. That's a good feeling. So I would like to just sit on that for a little while. I am still young, so I might change my mind, but yeah, right now I'm just focused on just building a different type of life compared to like grind mode. Let's get it. Yeah, I'm locked
Right.
in. You know what I'm saying? I'm not on that no more. I still am very much because I'm doing all these things, but it's just a different type of energy about it. It's more so focused on health, wealth, happiness, spend time with people, be able to have my hobbies. That's more important right now. So I'm I'm just kicking it. Other people's aspirations, to answer your question, I don't know even know if I did. But yeah, I really just was like reflecting a lot of like, do I wanna like would I trade places with others? And the answer was usually no, because it's a grind. It's a lot of stress. I already have like nervous system issues. So I mean, man, I can just can't afford any more unnecessary stress in my life and um anxiety and overwork and overextending at the moment. So yeah, for me, it's all about balance. I think balance is key in life, and I think like if you have a goal and you hit the goal and you're good, man. Like, what's the rush? Like you said, I'm in the same token. You said I'm young. I'm looking at it from the other way. You say I'm young. I should keep getting it. You didn't say that, but I'm
Right, but
young.
you're this is still part of your young years, like,
Young.
it's to set yourself up at a point where, like you had said, at 30 years old, I can take my foot off the gas and say, "I'm comfortable. If I wanted a job, I can have one. If I don't want a job, I don't need one, and
Right.
I can maintain my lifestyle. I have a fiancé, and listen, like, that's more than what a lot of people have to be able to ask for. You never hear people say that they can have everything all at once, right? I actually just recently did a podcast with a Stan Peak, and he had mentioned that you can have what you want, you just can't have it all at once. And
Mm,
you seem to be kind of having your cake and eating it too in a situation like this. But I think that it's because you're not greedy. You were able to put that work and you put in grind years, and at 30, still in your youth, you're able to do that.
mhm.
Do you get bored?
What was that?
Do you get bored?
I get bored. I get bored. I mean, not really, because I'm in a
Like,
place.
do you have any excitement in your life? What do you feel like this is some even if it's a personal goal, do you have anything that you're chasing? You just mentioned you're looking to buy a house. Like, what are some things that you're like, this is what I really have at my priority list in terms of what's even if it's a personal goal?
Yeah, travel. I wanna travel a lot more. I wanna travel a lot more. Like, that's like, I wanna go to a different country. Like, that's one thing. I want a Porsche. I love cars. I'm a car enthusiast. I love cars. Was working on cars with my dad since I was young. I was drawing cars when I was young with my father. Um, so yeah, I'm a big car enthusiast. I want a Porsche. There's just different experiences I want to live. I want to, go watch F1 race in Vegas. Like that's cool to
That
me
would
too.
be nice. I
Dope.
hear that's if you're into tech, that's the tech billionaires capital kind of thing event. So even I was watching a YouTube, I think it was Marquise Brownlee, big fan of his, by the way. Shout out Marquise Brownlee. And they're broken down into two separate categories, like the racer and like the team that put the car together.
Okay.
And the technology that goes into making these things milliseconds faster is like mind blowing to me. So everything you've mentioned has led me to ask, do you love design? Because from cars to you said mentioned being about a decade plus at 30 years old and being in the UX UI design area field, is that like something that you're like drawn to?
No. 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 No, not at all. If I were to have if I weren't doing this and, like, it was all about my passions and I can, like, do everything I wanna do just off of my love of everything, if love paid the bills, pretty much, I'd be probably, like, doing photography or something like that. I would be a
Well,
landscape.
you mentioned photography. That was one of the things that made me ask that. Like even in your beginning things of photography, what made you scale uh a UI UX like a graph or more graphic design kind of company, UI UX company versus a photography with, Adobe photo editing and stuff like that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good question. I ask myself that a lot because I think I coulda just did that, to be honest, and would've just been totally fine too. But, I think I just was hitting a ceiling with myself. I was young at the time. I think I just hitting a ceiling, like, in multiple ways, like, skill set wise, like, just professionally. I just was, and I couldn't break the plateau of, like, getting to 6 figures. I just wasn't, I just wasn't really doing all that well with photography. I just think now that I look at it, it just was like it was a knowledge gap. Um, so I think if I would have kept at it for sure, but what made me want to do UX UI was just like I was already also building websites and I was already like in design a little bit because I just like creativity as a whole. I just was into and stuff like that in my past. I was already tinkering around with that stuff, working at different companies, being the web guy, even though I wasn't really a web guy. Like they had me tinkering with like Wix and stuff like that. Ultimately, I did see opportunity there. I um I was exposed to it too just by talking with amongst one of my friends. Like, hey, around the pandemic, like everyone had those discussions. Oh, everything's going digital and all. So this, I was like, okay, bet. Like, let me just double down and be the one to offer sites. So it's really simple. I just seen opportunity and was like, okay, like that's where we're going. So let's just do this. And I just kept building my skill set. But yeah, by all means, I like design. Am I passionate about it? Nah, it's not that deep to me. So yeah.
Okay. So it's something that just pays the bills, but you clearly are good at it to be able to partner and work with all these different kinds of companies. How would you describe working through the parts that you don't like to scale this company? Because, like you said, you were hitting a knowledge gap in a ceiling plateau with your photography, yet you were able to scale the UI UX to six figures. What about UI UX was scalable to six figures versus your passion in regards to photography, which could have then led over to graphic design during the pandemic? What made you be able to scale UI UX and not photography, graphic design?
You're a good interviewer, man. No one's ever asked me that. I haven't even asked myself that. It's like that's good. I think, man. Well, I'll say that when I got I think the money, man, like, the money was just different. Like, yeah, I was getting paid, 1,000 or so for photography, but doing websites, I heard a lot of, talks about, just charging, like, 5K out the gate, like, charging, just go for it. I think I just was invested in a lot of different education around UX, UI in terms of pricing, in terms of, like, sale. I just was more like a business savvy person at that time. Like, I just was, like, growing.
Mm.
So I like it was right at that time where I was like, "Okay, like, the photography thing failed, like, cool, whatever, clean slate, let's do this thing differently." So I was consuming a lot of different content around, like, business and design stuff and So I was like, I just was in a different like headspace. And so like I felt more confident to charge more. I felt like I could really do this. And when I got that first 5K like proposal signed off, I was like, this is crazy. This is the most I probably have ever made freelancing in one payment. So like there's opportunity here, and like this is just a small company. This is not like this is somebody on Instagram who has their own business just like me. So I can imagine what this looks like working with larger companies, working with large orgs. And that just like that drove me to be like, what, let's really double down. Let's keep learning. Let me just keep, going all in on this. And I think that energy helped me scale. I just think that like and just constantly just reiterating, like I was saying earlier, my processes and
Mm.
just keep, like, doubling down on everything, you know what I mean? Because next thing you know, that 5K turned into 10, that 10 turned into 15, that 15, 20, et cetera.
It was the money. Yeah, it was like, oh, this is getting good.
Yeah.
Like I'm making money.
Yeah,
Now,
it was
money in regards to UI UX, especially during the pandemic, comes down to distribution. What was your distribution method? How did you get those very first partnerships, the small ones? And what did you do to land that first 5K client? Because 5K out the gate is a lot. And for some people right now, they'd be like, yo, if I could land a 5K client, ah, how out the gate going 5K? What did you do?
what did I do at the gate? Well, I had all my in order. So, like, my website, my offer, I knew yeah, my website, my offer, I made it super easy for people to contact me, so I had, like, a booking and everything, like, everything was just, like, really, like design to me was really simplified back then. So it should be now, but I'm this artistic guy that likes like, trying new. At the time though, I was
That's
like
fact.
really simple, you know what I mean? So I had that going, and also I was on Instagram like making carousels, like back when people were doing like those swipe to learn more carousels. And I was like, um, I don't think reels were even a thing at the time, and I just was making a bunch of like, and if it was, it wasn't like how it is now. But I was making a bunch of content like, just web design, like how it relates to growing your business, how it could improve, your sales, and like I was going and I was deep in that bag, you know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
posting every day, like, twice a day, 3 times a day. And that's how I landed that first 5K client, just straight organic marketing on Insta. Um, so that was that. That's how I got there. The person DM me, reached out to me like, "Hey, I seen your post, like your work. And yeah, let's connect. I have I'm working on a project, yada yada." And that ended up going through. So that was a big win that day. And then so from that, how I landed my first partnerships is very different. So my partnerships, I felt like on Instagram I was stuck. You know, Insta's kind of hard to grow on anyway. So it's like,
Right.
especially if you want like quick return, you know what I mean? So I was like, man, you know what? I'm not really, this ain't really, this is cool, but I wonder if I can accelerate, and get to where I want to be faster. Didn't put any money into marketing. Instead, what I did was I did cold emails. Yeah, and it's not like I had like, a script or no. I just was trying to be friendly, try to be helpful. You know what I'm saying? So I was going
Right.
through, I was searching some hashtags randomly. I think of like Shopify hashtags or like plant life. It was very niche or niche, however you say it. And I was going through those hashtags, and I came across a company that was selling, like, plants, and they also were doing, like, events, shit like that. I was like, "Hey, dope, let me reach out." I reached out, and I was like, "Hey, I noticed there's some improvements that could be done to your website. Like, I'm a designer, this is what I do, check this out, this is my company I'm building, yada, yada." And, they're like, "Hey, like, let me get you in contact with, one of our partners. He manages the web." I was like, "Okay, cool." So that partner we still work with today. It's called Cohere Studio or Cohere City. I don't know if they changed the domain, but either one of those, we still work with them today, which is cool. Like that's dope. Like it's been 4 years we've been working together, and it all started with them. I got connected with them. They're like, hey, let's do a test project. Let's do a landing page, something simple. You guys develop it. We'll design it. And yeah, ever since then, that's been it. So that's how I formulated the first. That sample size is how I've formulated all of them, just connections.
There we go. You guys have that. So we're gonna be able to clip that, and everyone should now be able to have that. That right there is a pure recipe for growing to a six, like right there, six figures. Like
Yeah,
out the
yeah.
gate, charge 5K. No, I'm just kidding. You can't really out. You can't just out the gate charge 5K. It depends on what you're doing. Obviously, skill, all of that. But you were able to learn it relatively on the fly. You said that that wasn't something that you had already really been into previously, but you had
Mhm.
mentioned it, passion for cars. Talk to me about this passion for cars. Is this something that was passed down to you from your dad, or is it something that you did together? How did you get into cars?
Yeah, I got into cars from my dad, yeah. He had a old school Camaro for, a Z-Rock Camaro, all red. Even the rims and the interior, man, that thing was red, man. It was red. I was like, "Yo, this guy is crazy." Got an all red car. Um, and he always would work on it out there in our garage at the time, and I just was, like, so intrigued by it. I just was watching. I was a kid at the time, probably 6, 7 years old, just, like, watching him do whatever, putting upgrades to it. I was like, "Okay, cool." And then he's an artist himself. He used to work at, Boeing as an engineer and a technician. So he have a bunch of schematics, like blueprint schematics, how he wants to implement changes, like, from the team. And he would be drawing all the time. I think because of that, he was also naturally an artist. So with that being said, we would draw together. Like, when he was done with his schematics, I'd pull out, like, my little notepad, and we just would draw. And he would draw different cars, I would mimic them, and he would continue. It's that type of relationship, just, always being involved with cars with him. He loved collecting them, he loved buying them, fixing
Mm.
them. I just was always kind of in that space, even growing up around my uncles and stuff, like, they're in the lowriders. I'm half Mexican, so, I got a little bit of Chicano culture,
Right.
I'm saying, is my background. So for me, I always grew up around that stuff too. Like, I just was always embedded in cars. And yeah, fast forward to today, that's kind of like where everything came from. It's just me liking those types of things from that.
All right. So I know you said you didn't necessarily have an interest in UI UX design previously, but it seems like from the beginning, you are at least an artist, drawing since a young age, being into photography, being just a creative. There we go. I think that would be the much better term. You are a creative. And
Right.
that has been a really good thing for you throughout the past decade, being able to make money as a UI UX designer. Run me your top five favorite cars, and then I'm gonna ask you to do something really crazy, which is I want you to then compare them or rate them against your top five favorite software apps that you use as a developer. All the things that you need in to be a developer, whatever your favorite design tool is, Figma, Framer, whatever it is that I don't even know if Framer is something that's used for UI UX. But whatever your top five are, and then your top five cars, and then run me a comparison on the top five.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, out the gate, it's gotta be a Porsche 911 GT3. You can go with any date on those. I'll just say 2022, just because. And then I'll have to say BMW F10 M Sport. That thing is crazy. It's the last beautiful design of BMW, in my opinion, before they got, like, this crazy grills going on these days.
Mhm.
Um, I'd probably would also say, I'd have to go with also, like, a BMW E30. This is a classic. Um,
Okay. Now, are you an aesthetic of the car, or do you wanna know the interior, how it runs, how fast is it, the horsepower, you're tweaking it all the way through?
yeah, everything, everything.
Okay.
It's everything. Yeah, it's aesthetic, and then it's also, like, how it if I'm buying a car to, like, go, like, purchase on my day-to-day and drive, like, it matters how I drive. Like, I'm not a fast driver by any means or nothing like that. I just like, like something that looks good and I can cruise in it.
Mm.
So design is more so important. But when it comes to just looking at just the enthusiast aspect, it's like a mixture of everything, right? The other two, I'll probably just say, let me go with something. I mean, I like the new Audis. The Audi Q5s are pretty smooth. So let's just throw one of those in there. And then I think a car I've also always wanted was, uh, what can I think of? I already said Porsche. I mean, Porsche is like, um, I'll go with the Porsche Cayman this time. It'll be like a 7 when it Cayman, like a drop top, something like that. So yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, top 5, apps that you're gonna be using as a software or, as a UI UX developer, and then run me your comparison on why they're 1s, 2s, and 3s, and 4s.
Man, okay. Um, I think, well, I mean, if I'm kind of biased, but I do think Webflow is a strong tool, and I think I'll probably put that's like your Porsche 911. It makes aesthetically pleasing things, and it
Mm.
it also the engineering is great. You can do a bunch of with it, right? Like, you can plug in a bunch of different apps. It's heavily supported, but it's not like you gotta do a ton of legwork. Um, the Well, so is this UX UI only? Because sometimes you got dev stuff in there just
No, you can
by
get into dev stuff.
okay. Because I was gonna say, I'm just gonna do on platforms for some reason. So I think if I were to do WordPress, I would say that that's the E30 for sure. That's the BMW E30 for sure. Because it's older, it's been in the game for a while, but it's a classic. It's undebatable that it gets the job done. It's just more mechanical. You might have to implement some code in it. You have to really just know what you're doing, right? Like
Right,
you
right. It's
can't
a
just
mechanics car and it's a developer's develop site.
you're right, true, like, developers for sure. And then if I were to look at something like, Framer, I probably would call that the Cayman. That's probably the Cayman. It's it's a smaller company right now. It's smooth, though. It's still smooth. It creates aesthetically pleasing things. It gets the job done. And, it's people are arguably saying, "I'd rather have a Cayman than a 911 just because I like mid-engine cars," which is the Cayman versus the engine in the back of you. So, it's like,
Mm,
I can see some Porsche enthusiasts debating just like Webflow and Framer people like debate all the time. Um, and then yeah, the BMW like F10 M Sport, that's probably just like your Shopify because it's a well-rounded machine. It's been around for a while. It's been some decade,
mhm.
it's decade and some change. Like, this was crazy. It actually ended up, working out. So cool. But yeah,
I love the comparisons, especially because if you are very heavily into, like, different kinds of things, you can draw connections, I feel, to anything. People are like, "Oh, that does you can't compare apples to oranges." Yes, you can. You can say an apple is red and orange is orange. An apple tastes, a lot sweeter, and orange tastes citrusy. You can compare them. You're gonna get a lot of differences, but they're absolutely comparable. And so, with just like a lot of people relate sports to business in terms of being a developer, if you like cars, let's rate what runs, what's gonna hold your website the longest, what's gonna handle traffic, what's gonna be the developer, the aesthetically pleasing, the easiest to even set up or add the plugins, as you mentioned with Webflow. So, oh my gosh, I feel like we've just been kind of chatting, man. I love when things go like this. I love when things go like this.
yeah, me too.
Now, on your bio, you have 2022 and 2023 finalists for Webflow. What does that mean?
So they have Webflow awards every year, and yeah, they have just different categories. I was actually supposed to put professional partner of the year, just that I don't have enough like space for all that stuff in a bio. But yeah, we won in the professional partner of the year category in 2022. Got a cool award for it. It's back there. It's yeah, that W up there, in that corner.
Oh,
Right, that's the award. Pretty cool. They select some partners. I think the community votes as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but just people that have been doing the work over the years and, been contributing to the community and stuff like that. They typically award them every year in different categories. Professional Partner of the Year is one. We won that one 2022, and we were finalists, last year, 2023, and we were one of the ones in that category, the only one to go back to back, which is cool. So even if we didn't win, like, that's still cool, nice, so that was dope.
you have so many accolades for someone who's only been 30 years old. You've been like racking them up.
Thank you.
So, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment? You've racked up all of these accolades. What's the biggest one, or your favorite? What means the most to you?
It's a good one. That's a good one, man. I mean, I have less of an award accomplishment and more so like an interpersonal accomplishment.
Okay.
So my accomplishment, I think, is more like I'm still able to be a level-headed, like humble, down to earth, and grounded person. There's people and I've seen this over the years. There's people who let their accolades get to their head. There's people who inflate themselves. There's people who, they just get too caught up, you know what I'm saying, in all of this. And unfortunately, sometimes morals and values can go out the window, you know what I mean? But I think for me, like I've always, even my relations with people, right? Like, because people will say, you'll hear a lot of advice, you have to let go of everybody to level up. You'll have to drop all your friends. I've always been intact with the people I grew up with and I respect, and I'm able to keep them in my circle while, like, even though we're in completely different areas in life, these days can relate to little. I still appreciate them. They're still my friends, still love them to death. I'm able to keep everyone connected, right? And I'm able to just keep my head intact, like level-headed, like nothing is really like I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to grow. There's always room for improvement for me. So there's never a moment where I'm like, talking down on somebody who's just getting started. There's never a moment where I'm like, think I'm better than everybody or whatever. Like I'm
Mhm.
just chilling, man. Same guy. It's just some cool shit's happening in between then. You know what I mean? So, like that's an accomplishment for me. Because as you can imagine, like dealing with these companies, not only is it a challenge just to get the sale, but being a black entrepreneur in these spaces, like
Mhm.
you're open to judgment in a different light. I had to at one point prove myself, and that in itself, I might come off as egotistical, you know what I'm saying, overly confident just because I gotta push through, you know what I'm saying? So, in some scenarios, some people can let that just totally get to them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
that's the interpersonal one. I think to actually answer, like, the, like, award thing, that a Webflow award was pretty cool, man. Like, that was dope. I like that one. It it reflects the work that we've done and stuff like that, and the efforts we put towards the community and the coaching I do and just try to connect with people, and so that I like that one.
I think we've had a pretty technical and typical style interview so far. I kind of want to gossip a little bit.
Yeah, for
What what's been your like most annoying client?
ooh, man.
Like, what was the situation? You don't need to drop names, but
Yeah.
what was this? What happened?
Situation was we were hired to do client reached out to us, we did the proposal, went through the whole spiel. Then we were asked to do a few pages in a matter of 24 hours. Now, this wouldn't be bad, if there this is typically not something that you would do. It was a couple pages in, like, a span of 24 hours, but you're like, what is 24 hours really? That's just like 8 hours basically, because 'cause you're not about to work all day, all night. So,
Right.
basically the next day you gotta show something, and we were dealing with them for a while, and there was some back and forth about, like, what was right, what was wrong in terms of, like, how it was built. So, like, we designed it, we built it out and everything like that. We delivered it. Then I think one of their people on their side were just, like, complaining about a few things that, like, if you were to give us more time, we can turn this out like how it's supposed to be, but since you want us to rig this together in a short amount of time, like, we gotta just, this is what it is. Just give us more time and we can do more stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, so it was one of those scenarios. They're a large company. They were getting funded and everything like that at the time. So this was really important. There was a lot of back and forths, people on my team being like, hey, like, this ain't right. There's been a couple of those scenarios. I think another one that's more, I guess, like, interesting is, like, we had a partner fallout, and it just was, they expected us to be like, companies have salaries, man. And so when they are working with us, we're on contract, we're on NDAs, we're on MSAs, master service agreements. So, like, we're only supposed to do, like, the set of things we agreed to. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
Right.
meanwhile, while the companies like so while the people at the company, they got, salaries to work every day, they can, whatever. You guys can lollygag. We gotta, like, do this right now and have it done. So we're
Mhm.
profiting. Hey, um, but this partner wanted us to be on all the time as if we work, like, at the company. Well, we don't work at the company. Like, we're just partners with you. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they expected us to just be on all the time, like, even, like, pushing us past the point of our agreement and trying to get free work out of us and all types.
Oh,
Yeah, all types of just chaoticness. It's even hard to describe because just imagine a toxic workplace where they just don't know the word, like, "Let's shut down for the night." Like, that's how it was. Some of these startups really do feel like they need to just be on all day, all night, and we're not gonna do that. You don't pay us for that. So,
right.
you know,
That
y
was me at one point. I was one of those people that was like, I have to be on. Like, I need, like, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, I need to be in gear 24/7. And while I still kind of partially feel like that, I don't want to like I don't want to lie and say like I've completely gotten that out of my system. It just feels I can take it and I feel less guilty. I'm not gonna say I don't feel guilty, but I feel less guilty when I do take that time where I'm like, I'm gonna shut down at 6 o'clock, seven
yeah.
o'clock, and not deal with it. I've had sometimes clients hit me at like 9:30 at night, and I'm like, I'm gonna deal with that in the morning. I have like if I do not restrain myself or if I don't set the boundaries, the client's not going to. They're going to take as much as we give them in that particular situation, you know? So I definitely understand it can get really annoying to deal with
Yeah.
boundary pushers.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. That I've always struggled with that too. I think by nature I was a people pleaser growing up, and so for some reason it's leaked into my adulthood. So I do have that problem too. I did at one point. I think the older I get and the more years everything goes by, experience I get, I just feel more so inclined to just look after myself and advocate for myself. So yeah, especially within the last years, I just been
Do you
putting a
have
hard.
siblings?
Well, I do. I have one that's way older than me. Yeah, she lives in Arkansas. I didn't grow up with her, so I was just, only child,
It was really just you.
which is me. Yeah.
Would you classify yourself as a good child? Not
A
like
good.
a yeah, would you you weren't a bad you weren't like,
Nah,
getting in
I was
trouble all the time.
nah, I was quiet. I was so quiet. I remember my grandma always used to tell me like, "Hey, you have something to say? Like, speak up, like, talk."
No,
Yeah,
I've noticed people that are either, firstborn childs or only children, they have that spotlight on them. So
yeah,
the parents can be a little bit more, we need to be in line, we need to be in order, we need to be on all P's and Q's, especially in a public setting, so that it almost was like raising a people pleaser, if you will. I only because I relate in that situation where, as especially as a young child, it because accolades is fun, getting accolades, getting rewards is it's that dopamine effect, You already have a lot of accolades, and I think that one of the things that can drive people is that just the ability to say that I have it, and you've gotten to the point that now that you have it, you can kind of slow down. And I feel like that's the point I feel I would be trying to get to is I say I wanted to do something, I did it, and now I don't have to prove it anymore because I was able to do it.
right.
Just
Yeah,
reaching that point, and to be able to reach it at 30, man, is a hell of a freaking kind of achievement, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. It opens up doors, man. It really does for yourself. It opens up doors. It makes you realize, like, now that I can take a step back and look at everything that I've done or I've reached my goal finally, now I can, like, do this from a different perspective. It's not really about no more survival mode, no more like, let's just I gotta be on for the sake of being on to get this thing. Now it's like, okay, I can have a little bit more fun with it. I can switch
Right.
things around. I can take it somewhere else now. It doesn't need to just be, because I have to, right? And that opens doors. And I think like, in that time frame too, you learn a little bit about yourself of like, now that I have extra time on my hands, or now that I can take a break, I can look at new hobbies, new things about me. I can work on myself. I know for me, man, I grew up in some pretty rough situations. So for me to hit this point, like I can really, tend to some of the pieces of me that may have been neglected in the past, right? And I can like focus on health. I can focus on different things. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's for sure. It's just one of those things where, you learn with time after you reach your goal to, take a step back and, set boundaries and everything.
I definitely agree. Before we get you out of here, we always like to ask like an actual final question. Uh, and I usually try to culminate it, something that's been going on throughout the entire podcast episode. And the thing that's been on my mind that now that I would like to lead into that is my question to you is having a fiance,
Yeah.
the natural order of things. I don't know if you'd like to have kids. Is that something that's on the table?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Would you want them to go down the path of entrepreneurship like you did?
Yeah, because I'm a high school dropout. I didn't go to college. I went to community. I mean, I think like that allowed me to explore what I wanted to really do. I mean, I think these days, especially, I mean, the sky's the limit, man. There's a lot of different ways you can monetize a skill.
Whoa,
Some
whoa,
people,
wait. They just cooked you. I did not know that. You dropped out of high school?
yeah, I mean, I didn't walk, didn't get no cool paper. I didn't get the funny hat. I didn't get none of that, man. Just I didn't.
Whoa, man. That makes things even oh wow, man. That makes things oh god. I'm extended. Give me that story. What did you drop out for any like particular reason? Was it just you felt school wasn't for you? Was it maybe a family thing? Like what was your cause?
Yeah, my cause was for a different amount of things. Number one, I grew up in a, I've been saying this without any context, but I've been saying that I grew up in a rough environment. What I mean by that is, we lost our house at a young age. We lost our house when I was like 11 years old, 11 or 10. So I had to couch surf, quote unquote, being homeless that took a toll on me mentally, and I just couldn't focus at school. I just didn't know what my future held. So,
Mhm.
that just threw me off of my education. That was one thing, and number 2, I'm trash at math, to be honest. I'm just really bad. Try to get tutors and everything, it just nah, math ain't for me. I've learned it over the years now, but at the time, I just wasn't doing it. I just couldn't focus. My environments were just too they were just too chaotic. I grew up around, you know, the Mexican side of my family, man, they're rough. They I grew up in a gang environment, basically, of like having
Mm.
my home raided by police, guns pointed at me, just like stuff that would just like shake anybody up. I've been through, seeing a lot of violence happening. So, you could imagine trying to like navigate through, middle school, high school, you're not really all that focused. So that was me. And those 2 things ultimately were like the driver for me not to like just quit. I honestly kind of quit on school through like junior year. I was like, man, I can't. So, um, yeah, and so that caused me just not to get, not to be graduated or not walk or anything. So,
Man, so to then turn all of that around, get into UI UX design, scale to a six-figure company, man, and to do all of that after having gone through that is something that's remarkably incredible in that that's what we like to look for in terms of the entrepreneur story, because that's like I don't want to say the American dream, because the American dream, that's the entrepreneur's like too. I didn't even graduate high school. I went to community college, but I still was able to scale to six figures. I have a fiance, and you see that it hasn't affected me in a way that has led me down a particular path. And I was directly exposed to things. Someone like me was like, you were walking down the street and you can see them and you understand that that's just the environment that you live in versus living truly in the belly of the beast and then having to come out almost like Bane, Batman and Bane. Batman, he's like, you adopted the dark. Bane, I was born in it. And you were
yeah,
able to come out and you consider yourself like a happy go lucky, smiling kind of person. You've been smiling all freaking episode. Like
yeah.
you where does where does your happiness come from? You mentioned, as you had mentioned, you had to take a step back, especially when you were making this money and saying, I this isn't what's gonna make me happy. And from someone didn't grow up with much, you would think that being able to even go get more money and do all of these things would make would be like, oh, that's gonna make me happier. What made you step back and then say that's not it? Because you had to experience that. So from that point, why do you not feel the need to overindulge?
Yeah, um, that's a good question, and I don't know how to put it in words really, but that story that you talk about, the entrepreneur story, the fact that I have turned it around in such a way, it does contribute to that, like, baseline level of happiness. So for me, having gone through all that and being able to turn life around, like, just a decade and some change ago, I was just, like, thinking, like, "I don't know what the f I'm gonna do with my life." Like, you know what I'm saying? I like, this I could be, I could be anything right now other than who I am, and the fact that who I am today just makes me happy. And to answer your question about, like, this, things that didn't feel in alignment with me, and the reason why I had to take a step back is because, I did feel like I was overextending for no reason, and, like I say, I try to stay grounded, right? Connected to the people around me, connected with myself. I keep remembering my past self and thinking like, "Okay, what drove me then and what has stuck with me from then to now, and ultimately, like, I have this inner contentment, man. Like, once you go through the fire, you know what I'm saying? It's
Mhm.
just reach certain levels in life that you would never think you would. So, like, that in itself keeps me happy, and if at any moment where I feel like I'm overextending that, and I notice when I overextend, I kinda get out of my element a little bit. I start to feel stress and, anxiety and, stuff like that. So, whenever I feel that, I know that like, "Okay, like, let's just kind of, let's push this back. Like, we don't gotta keep, and that's not for the sake of me, like, running away from it. It's more so just me being aware of, like, okay, like, I'm pretty content, right? So, yeah, I think that's just really it. Just have, like, this constant inner, I don't know what it is, man. It's like contentment that I just feel like this is my fun, right? Like turning the darkness into light is exciting to me. So
Mm.
I'm having a blast. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I mean, there's nothing more for me like that like I feel like I need to externally get for me to feel that.
I feel
So
like coaching is gonna be close in your future. I don't know. Hearing the story, I feel like you're it smells coaching. Yes, this is how life coach, business coach, one of the two. One of the two. I can smell it in the future. Anyway, we have had an amazing conversation, Dexter. This has been like really chill vibes. I've absolutely loved it. I think the audience is going to find some amazing value, especially in your story and some of the practical things that you did that they'll be able to replicate. So before we officially have to gift you out, the biggest question I'm going to ask, and this one you can pass on because of your state. Where can we find you for business? If someone was listening to this, if they wanted a UX designer, are you taking new clients? Is that something that, where can we find you? Give them the same as plug.
yeah, for sure. You can find you can reach out at craftthestudios.co. You go to the contact, you'll find a calendar if you want to have a conversation. Yeah, we can start off there. We can see if like we're a good fit. So yeah, craftthestudios.co, not .com. I'm always on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Dexter W Jr. That's where we connected. I'm on socials. I try to respond when I can. I do know some people inquire through there. So yeah, you can find me there.
All right. It's yo, like I said, man, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. If you need any UI UX design, make sure you go to craftedstudios.co. All of the information is going to be in the description, the link, the bio, you name it. Go find it. Thank you very much.
Man.